A good day to you, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's edition of Press R, in which we're going to treat something special. We're going to look at the special status. Where are the public independent conciliators? The question that we are asking on this program is the question we've heard from the public, from so many people, to ask. What is even the role of the public independent conciliator that comes as part of the status, the special status that is granted, especially to the Northwest and Southwest regions? We went right up to the Northwest, we went right down to the Southwest and consulted, took the two officials, the public independent conciliator for the Northwest region, the public independent conciliator for the Southwest region. We brought them to Yaoundé to tell you what their role is and how far they are accomplishing their missions. We have them here. That is our mission today on Press R. Mrs. Botaze Teleren Dorothy Atabon is the public independent conciliator for the Southwest region. We are pleased to have you on Press R set today, and we hope you had a safe journey from Boya this morning to Yaoundé.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kilian. Yes, I did, and I'm glad to be here for this special program to talk about the Office of the Public Independent Conciliator, Southwest Region.
Thank you once again. It's our honor, and we have, I overheard you out of the studio calling yourselves brother and sister. I'm going to welcome Mr. Tamfu Simon Fai, who is the public independent conciliator for the Northwest region. You're welcome, sir. You also traveled all the way from Bamenda to Yaoundé for this program.
Thank you very much, Kilian. It's a pleasure to be here, and welcome and good afternoon to televiewers. We are happy that you've given us this opportunity to tell our viewers what the Public Independent Conciliator stands for.
And this falls within what we call decentralization, making people actually feel involved in the way they are governed in Cameroon. And we have an official from the Ministry of Decentralization and Local Development in the name of Mr. Cho Enes Ngu, who is the Director of Human Resources in that ministry, and we're pleased to have you here, sir.
Thank you, Kilian and Ndifon. It is always my pleasure to be here. Each time duty calls, the Ministry of Decentralization must answer present.
Thank you very much, and we want to extend our thanks to the Minister in charge of Decentralization and Local Development. And since we got this type of guest, high profile, high caliber lady and men that you are, we came to CRTV and decided to look for one of the summits of our colleagues in the name of Tewi Lambif, who is an editorialist in CRTV. Who else could we get to handle issues like this? We are pleased to have you, Tewi.
Always a pleasure, Kilian, but any other person can do this. I think every other person could have done this. Well, I accept.
Thank you very much. That is just a mark of humility. We are pleased you are here. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to look at what the press fed on and the week that just passed. And Yoti Kaleli Songe, read the newspapers for us. Yoti?
As readers conscious of the fight against hate speech, Cameroon Tribune spotlights the mobilization around the fight against hate speech, while Echo Outlook goes further to disclose the National Commission for the Promotion of Bilingualism and Multiculturalism partnering with civil society organizations. A similar article carried by The Horizon, wherein the president of the Bilingualism Commission outlines the importance of involving the civil society to combat hate speech and xenophobia in the country. Meantime, The Guardian Post captures the president of the National Communication Council warning journalists against the spread of hate speech on the media. Cameroon Insider reports that the NCC has muted erring journalists and media organs with sanctions ranging from warning to outright ban. The Guardian Post also accentuates the presidency going on the offensive to fight against hate speech, a civil cabinet campaign with billboards on major road junctions. Cameroon Tribune also spotlights the parliament condemning hate speech and kidnappings as the June session opens. A session, Municipal Updates indicates, opened with Kavai striking Ambazonia fighters and Nyat condemning threats to national unity. Meanwhile, the Cameroonian diaspora is seeing deepening ties with the National Assembly on the horizon. Cameroon Insider is keen on the reconvening of members of parliament for the June session. As read on Cameroon Tribune, the stakes of the June session include a budget orientation debate and a bill ordinance modifying the 2023 state budget. A budget modified by the head of state. While the Horizon opines that President Biya has adjusted the state budget to avert another fuel price increase, the Guardian Post states that it is to reinforce the Northwest, Southwest and Far North reconstruction plan, and Municipal Updates concurs, revealing that it is a priority. The Horizon, however, has an article on the Anglophone crisis and fight against Boko Haram ranked amongst the most neglected in the world, suggesting in another edition that preventing potential perpetrators of the Anglophone crisis could be a way of ending the conflict in the Northwest and Southwest regions. The Herald Tribune, on its part, took an interest in the SDF National Elective Convention scheduled for July 28 and 29. Municipal Updates divulges preparations intensifying ahead of the elective convention. To the Horizon, the SDF is gathering momentum for a leadership change. This week as well, ambassadors designate serving in Cameroon for a couple of months now kept trooping into the Unity Palace, presenting true copies of their letters of credence to President Paul Biya. Prime Minister Joseph John Gute was also at the Africa CEO Forum, wooing potential investors and sounding loud that Cameroon is a home for business. The print press mentioned too that the government has allocated 255 hectares of land for the construction of a modern airport in Tiko. In education, the papers reported that panic has gripped teachers as the secondary education minister goes tough on absenteeism. Whilst learning and research is boosted at the ICT University, students have a new U-bus, giving them access to lectures in real time while shuttling between home and school. Echo Outlook and the Herald Tribune, however, warned the population on weather changes based on the findings of the National Observatory on Climate Change. This same week, the International Cycling Tour began in Cameroon. The Guardian Post Sunday Special Sports Edition has news on the Cameroon-Mexico friendly. These and more kept readers abreast of events at home and abroad.
Thank you very much, Yoti Kale Lesonge, for giving us a brief review, of course, of what the newspapers talked about in the week that ended. In the General Code of Regional and Local Authorities, we have in Section 327 sub 2, it reads, the special status referred to in subsection 1 above shall confer on the Northwest and Southwest regions a special organization and operational regime based on the historical, social, and cultural values of these regions, with the respect for the primacy of the state and national unity and solidarity. Within this framework, we have an institution called the Public Independent Conciliator. The conciliators themselves are here. Mr. Tamfu, Simon Fai, and his counterpart from the Southwest, that's he's from the Northwest, Mrs. Mutaze Dorothy Atabon, who are here, who are supposed to perform the special duties of a public independent conciliator. We are going to know exactly what your role is, how you are playing your role. But we go to the Ministry of Decentralization and Local Development. I suppose they are the ones who drafted this code the General Code of Regional and Local Authorities. What exactly is the Public Independent Conciliator and their missions? In short, obviously within the framework of the special status granted to the Northwest and Southwest regions.
Thank you once more, Kilian. This is a very important subject. You just cited sections 327, which said within the special status is going to be organized in a way to function differently from what we can call the ordinary status or the general regime, considering the historical, legal, and socioeconomic background of those two regions. And most importantly, taking into consideration the national unity and the primacy. When we talk about primacy, it means the state remains the overall entity of Cameroon. So that being said, the socio-political and historical background of our these two regions show that we have had the House of Chiefs before. That is the first manifestation of that special status. Now before us we have the two independent conciliators, which is the second manifestation of the special status. Now, what is the independent, public independent conciliator? If we go back to international law, we realize that it is an office that exists in some other countries. It comes from the Swedish word, the ombudsman. When we talk about the ombudsman, is that person who protects the common man. It's like a court, because we know that the court is the cushion between the downtrodden and the public authority. Now, when we have the ombudsman from the Swedish word, in French nomenclature is called the médiateur public.
Okay.
And when we talk about médiateur public, is that person who mediates between the common man and a state or a superior authority. Now we have the independent conciliator. Let us come back to our context. We are within decentralization now, because we must always come right back to where it belongs. We are in decentralization. The independent public independent conciliator within the context of decentralization in a special status setup means those people who have been the institution or the office that has been set up in the Northwest and Southwest regions to protect the rights of the individual against the might of the local and regional authority, that is the councils and the regional authority.
Thank you. I'm going to get to them, to the public independent conciliators, the two of them who are with us here on the set. You've talked globally. Could we now know your roles, specifically what are you called up to do, point by point? We begin with you, Mr. Tamfu Simon Fai. You could give some, then I go to Mrs. Motaze, Dorothy Atabong to give me others.
Okay, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to present the missions of the Public Independent Conciliator. The Public Independent Conciliator, as has been said, is principally to defend the rights of the downtrodden, to defend the right of those who don't have a voice in our society. And it is done within the context of decentralization. What does that mean? It means that some of the units of government which are decentralized from the central government to the regional government are caged, or they are housed within councils. When we talk of council, we talk of regional council, city council, subdivisional council, and local councils. So these decentralized bodies are managed within these councils, and these councils bring services to the population, and the population will be like service users. When this happens, this mix of service dispenser and service user, there must be some kind of problem, and these problems are put to the Public Independent Conciliator to solve. The Public Independent Conciliator solves some of these problems amicably. So they are not people who give right and wrong to any problem, but they make sure that these problems are solved in such a way that the people who bring this to us, the complainants and the respondents, are happy when the problem is solved. So the public independent conciliator are charged with defending and protecting rights and freedoms of service users. They are also out to prevent and combat direct or indirect discrimination, because this is what brings problems, and they ensure that the workers in these councils adopt some ethical behavior so that they can serve the public in a humane manner. And then, of course, they are also asked to improve the quality of services by proposing some of the laws or some of the texts that don't allow for smooth functioning of council.
Yes. Let me turn to Mrs. Mutaze Dorothy Atabong. He has not exhausted. Could we just have the other missions of the public independent conciliator?
Thank you, Mr. Kilian. To add to what my colleague has said, we examine issues that are brought to us by 5 parliamentarians or 5 regional councillors based on the functioning of regional or council administrative services. We design and implement measures to prevent direct or indirect discrimination, and we write a report which we forward to the Presidency of the Republic on a yearly basis on the functioning of the council and regional administration. So we have 6 functions, 6 missions. What I've said adds to what my colleague has already.
Yes, I would just want you to explain more to us. In that word discrimination, is that where, because we have a phenomenon here which is not clearly stated by the text, hate speech, which is a big problem to our society today. Are you also handling matters related to hate speech that we have these days?
Hate speech is an aspect of discrimination. So if hate speech is used against a user who goes to a collectivity to seek service, yes, we handle it. But I want to reiterate here that before complaints are tabled to us, the mayor must be able to have been made known of whatever difficulties the user is facing, meaning that the complaint must first be written to the mayor and some time given to the mayor to resolve the issue. And if it's not resolved to the satisfaction of the user, then the user can now complain to us, attaching the complaint of the mayor and other justification. I have to reiterate this point so that viewers don't sideline the collectivities and come straight to us. It's very important that the person concerned with the initial problem should be aware before it comes to us. By virtue of what we inherited, like Mr. Cho said, Cameroonians know before the onset of the crisis that Cameroonians of Southwest and Northwest extractions had certain values and characteristics. And among these characteristics, it was the aspect of dialogue as a tool to solve issues. Dialogue in the sense that we try as much as possible to avoid conflict, litigation, and unnecessary tension amongst the population. And this was to the extent to resolve fairness among the users or the people who live in the community, fairness, peace, and social justice. So we, as public independent conciliator, to my mind, these are those values that we have been asked to look into, and we have deployed ourselves on the field to ensure that we follow these attributes to create a vision for the Office of the Public Independent Conciliator through mediation, arbitration, and conciliation, to ensure that those values which the elder indigenes of the Southwest and Northwest regions inculcated in the daily lives of our communities, we are going to revive them. We are going to bring them back to practice.
Yes, Terry, I should have just come to you, but there is one point I would like that we'll clarify here before we come to you. Now, the Public Independent Conciliator settles disputes, issues between citizens and regional actors. Could we say you are replacing the court, or you are playing side by side the court? What's the difference between you and the court? Because the court, as we know, is the mandatory, the traditional institution where problems are settled. What's the difference between what you do and what the courts do?
That's a very beautiful question, and it's very important for viewers to understand that we don't work side by side with the courts. Ours is an institution that services are rendered free of charge. You just need to have a problem with a municipality or the regional assembly. The court is diverse, handles all issues. We are restricted, implying that even employer-employee relationships or disputes, we don't handle them. Disputes between state workers and a hierarchy, that is not within our competence. Our competence is restricted to persons who go to the local collectivities to seek service, and somewhere along the line, they don't receive what they expected.
Oh, good.
That is when they come to us. So we are not like a court, and we don't ask any money. Everything is free of charge, apart from the fact that you have to pay money. The complainant has to pay money to come to deposit a complaint. But that notwithstanding, we have our post box, we have every other thing that they don't need to come to our office.
Okay, you mean that if someone were to pay anything, is the road fare to come to your office?
Exactly.
Yes, not for any service.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, let me just add quickly that the courts are different from the Public Independent Conciliator in the sense that the courts normally solves a problem by giving right or wrong to people. But the Public Independent Conciliator solves a problem amicably and brings people together to solve that problem without giving right or wrong to either party. And when you summarize the missions that we have stated here, you see that the Public Independent Conciliator's office can be summarized in 3 words.
Yes.
Pacificator, watchdog of the public, and advocate of the downtrodden. So this is what we do.
But I know I may understand that so easily. Pacificator?
No, we solve problems to bring peace and harmony.
Yes.
To make people happy. In fact, people come to our office at dagger's end, drawn. But when they leave our office, they are hand in glove.
Good. Watchdog?
Watchdog is if you see that you have been maltreated, you are not treated well, and you try to solve the problem with the service dispenser, it's not going to come to us.
And the last,
an advocate.
Advocate.
We are your lawyers.
Okay.
We are your lawyers. We stand to defend you when you are not well treated.
Thank you very much.
Just 1 second.
Yes.
I played with Satewi. Let me just eat.
When we give him the floor, we will not take it back. We'll allow him. Let me just ask first. If a case is already in court, can you treat that case?
Exactly. That's why I was just...
if that's where you are going to answer the question then.
Because the question you asked before, do they work pari passu?
Yes.
No. Does the court work at the same time? The point is, a case might be in court. When the court gives a final decision on any matter, the Public Independent Conciliator is hands off.
Okay.
Yep. So, but the first issue is the complainant must have sought redress from the regional or local authority at fault. That at fault in quotes, because when you complain, you always say the other person is at fault. It might at the end be seen that you are the one at fault. So the regional or local authority at fault, I repeat in quotes, must be seized first.
Exactly.
If in the case of no satisfaction, then the independent conciliator, and then perhaps the ultimate will always be the court. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I should be the one to say thank you. Tewi, You've listened to the two public independent conciliators from Northwest and Southwest, and the opinion of the official from the Ministry of Decentralization and Local Development. As a press person, how do you read what is the role and what the public independent conciliator stands for?
Thank you very much for having me again. I want to start by reacting to what they've said so far, beginning with our senior colleague from the Ministry of Decentralization. He started off by describing the office of the Public Independent Conciliator, and rightly so, as having its origin in the Nordic Anglo-Saxon countries, particularly Sweden, and where it is called Ombudsman. I want to say here that I would add to what he said, that if we just leave it at that, we may be misleading the public. Because if somebody goes to read, to find out the role of an ombudsman in Sweden, you would see that it is completely different from what we have here. What he could have simply said was the ombudsman's role contextualized. We could not have copied and pasted. They have socio-economic, cultural, political differences. And it would be honest to say that it is not an ombudsman, what we have here.
Now, let us understand from you the difference between what happens in Sweden and what we have here.
That's where I'm going to. To say that here it is so limited, so circumscribed, in such a way that I dare not even call it public. It would be a regional and council mediator, if we wanted to be exact.
Would that not be correct? Because in Sweden, it is for the country, but in Cameroon, it's for two regions.
That's what I'm saying, that it is contextualized. And we must be honest to say that that is what it is.
Okay.
Secondly, you also note that he said all these come within the context of the spatial status. And spatial status, there are a number of institutions that indicate how spatial some regions are. And one of those is the Public Independent Conciliator. And given its role, which I have said is the Public Independent Conciliator from the Southwest said it very clearly, and I noted, it's restricted. Did you say so?
Yeah,
it's right. It's honest. It's true. It is. And so we cannot take it in isolation. I think we have a number of institutions that operate together for the special status to be seen.
Yes.
If you take one in isolation without the other, I'm afraid you will not be able. And that's why people keep on questioning, where is the independent or the special status? It's probably because some of these institutions are functioning the way they are in their own corner. I dare say I'm above the average Cameroonian in terms of being informed and looking for information. For the number of years that this has been existing, I cannot put my finger. To be honest, I cannot put my finger on what the Public Independent Conciliators have done. Maybe they do in the
exactly. That's why we have brought them here.
Yes,
and we are listening to them.
Shouldn't have been that.
Permit me now.
Not have been. Their actions have been speaking for them.
This is part of why they are here.
If you permit, Kilian.
Yes.
You said I was going to go on, in order not to
be interrupted.
To be interrupted. I'm saying that when the councils cannot function just as the councils, the regional councils are part of a system. The administration plays a role. In fact, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the senior divisional officers and some divisional officers still chair council sessions, still represent the government. How would you not be able to take into consideration their own role too?
Okay.
If the independent conciliator has nothing to do with the administration.
Let us say.
And I want to emphasize on this.
Yes, thank you very much.
I hope I'll have time to come back.
Yes, we'll always give you time. Your questions lead us directly to ask them, like you have been asking, like other Cameroonians have been asking, and that is why Press are asked and brought them here. What exactly have you been doing on the field. And before I get to them, we contacted someone who has benefited from the service of the public independent conciliator. First, we're going to go to the Southwest and meet Mr. Mbala. Mr. Mbala, if I hear we have him connected, if he is with us, we are going to ask him one question. You are in Tico. Tell us how is Tico today and what your problem was and what solution you got from the public independent conciliator.
The problem I had with the council, I had a problem with the mayor, not the council. I had a problem with the mayor as a councillor. You know, after the elections in February, we had to be installed, and from there we were supposed to start working as a deliberative council. So I was not satisfied with the mayor's approach to many issues in his management style, and well, in a nutshell, we had our problems. Our problems were problems of ego. So I decided to write to the public independent conciliator so that she can intervene, because after reading through the text, I found out that she had a very big role to play in terms of coming in and making peace to reign within an organization. So when I wrote to the public independent conciliator, who were both invited for a tete-a-tete, and after the deliberations of that, our invitation, she did a lot to educate us on our roles as councillors first. You know, we were all voted as a council, as councillors for the Tico Council. Then we later on voted the mayor. So she now threw the ball into my own court. As you people voted the mayor to rule on your behalf. And you are now still having your individual problems with the mayor. So where do you people want the Tico people to be? You know, that you are almost telling the Tico people that you are not ready to manage them. And we went back home and decided to think very profoundly the various advice that she gave us, and today we are doing fine. If you come to the council, the councillors see how we are working in tandem with the mayor. Behind the scene, people don't see what we do. He usually calls us for any major decision that he wants to take. Some of us councillors, especially the chairman of committees, he works especially with chairmen of committees. He calls them and wish to sort their opinion on certain boiling issues.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mbala Marin. That should be flash on your work. Can you give us some elements of that dispute he had with his mayor that he has not probably told us here, how you managed to settle that case?
Thank you, Mr. Kilian. In fact, that was the first complaint I had in 2021. And he has not mentioned the other aspects, that he was also a contractor to the Tico Council. And that is where I concentrated my effort, because normally the public independent conciliator should not look at disputes or disagreements between the employer and the employee. It's true that they are all councillors. So in addition to what he explained was the aspect of the non-payment and some difficulties or differences he encountered, because it's a previous mayor who gave the contract, and there was a lot of disagreement on. So I brought them as he has explained, and we had about 4 sessions, and I explained to them the raison d'etre for them to keep the Tico Council waxing strong. And they made so with me, and we resolved the issue well, and even the disagreement they had concerning the contracts he executed,
and it was settled.
The mayor agreed that they would settle, and that was done. So when I went back to them, everything was fine.
As he said, exactly.
As he said,
And I like your approach. He himself said it, that you asked them a very challenging question. When you are doing this, what image are you showing the people that you are taking care of in the Tico subdivision? Now, I am going to take an example from the Northwest that also concerns another case that the Mr. Tamfo Simon Fai settled. We're going to watch this interview I had with one of the mayors in Northwest, actually the mayor of Ndah, who had an issue and was settled by the Northwest Public Independent Conciliator. We're going to watch Mr. Konje, the mayor of Ndah.
My council, as I came in for this mandate as mayor, I discovered that there was a pensioner with a long-standing problem for over 20 years. The matter was taken over to the by the PIC, and the way the PIC handled the matter was very amicably. The pensioner was very happy, and my council wanted to certify the way the PIC handled the matter. It is a very interesting office. It is not a court. See a PIC office as an office whereby matters are resolved in the family way, more of a family way. I want to say that if the public can be visiting that office, in fact, we will discover that that is an office where matters are resolved out of the court. In fact, the court can lose some of the customers if people discover what the PIC office is. I really, in my own way, invite people to be passing by it, and let us thank the head of state, His Excellency President Paul Biya, for the special gifts to Northwest and Southwest, where matters are being resolved in a very family way, not necessarily going to the legal bench to handle issues between councils and individuals, between council and other institutions, between the regional level council and the council itself, and the other institutions of the government.
Okay, yes, let me he has just stated it summarily. I would like Mr. Tamfo Simon Fai to give us, this is a case that has been running for 20 years. He said that, but he has not brought out the details of this case. So we want to get that from you.
Thank you very much. The crux of the matter here was a dispute of over birth certificate, because this was a council worker who was put on retirement because the council felt he was born in 1940. But he was actually born in 1956 and was supposed to retire in 2016. And then we went through verification and saw that he had a birth certificate, he had a marriage certificate, all those dates rhymed. And then we pleaded with the mayor that even though this case was not handed to him in his handing over notes, this is something to look into, and he was kind enough to look into it. And then of course the stakes were very high because the complainant was asking a lot of money, and then we brought it down to a compromise figure, and the two parties accepted, and we supervised the payment.
Oh, good. Let us get some of the problems you settled before we come to Utewi. Are there some other problems? The one of Bafut?
The one of Bafut, actually, the district health area of Bafut was given some grants from the central government, from Yaoundé, to pay workers, temporary workers. And then this was not done. That was in 2020. Up to 2022, it was not done, and we independently verified and saw that the credits were given. And then we called the mayor and said, but why are you waiting to pay these guys? He said he had no credits. And then we said, okay, you want us to prove to you that you have the credits? And then, of course, he understood, and then everything went fine, and then he paid
the workers. Yeah. No, we are going to take all the examples before we come into looking at them. You had another one in Bamenda too, Councillor.
Yes, there was one in one quarter in Bamenda called Ngulum. A family offered a plot for a village community hall, and to be built by the council, Bamenda too. And then, of course, the villagers were very happy, the community was very happy that this family offered this land, and the council took it over and got credit to build this community hall, and the community hall was not built. So it came to us, and then we called the mayor and said, but you had the credit. Where is the concrete building of this community hall? And then, of course, he had no defense. But today, the community hall is there.
Oh,
built.
good. You settled that problem. We are going to take one last example, and it's a testimony. It's from Mr. Ebai from the Southwest. Let us watch this one too.
Went to the office of the independent conciliator to talk about a problem that was rather of a personal nature, because I felt that the person I was dealing with was actually a parliamentarian of good stuff, of high standing, that I thought maybe the conciliator could look into ways and means by which I could solve, my problem. But it's then that I learned of the role and the functions of the public conciliator after being out of the country for about 20 years. I was very impressed that not only is the whole proposal for decentralization working, but the special status given to the Northwest Southwest with the public independent conciliator for Northwest and Southwest is actually operational on the ground. I was well received. Madame Mutaze Dorothy told me of their role and their functions, and I said to myself, wow, this is the kind of technical administrative backstopping we need for our councils to become more efficient. I was particularly touched by the open door. So I learned something new. I learned that even though she couldn't solve the problem for which I came in, I got to leave her office with information on what they actually do and how useful they really could be to our councils or our communes or the regional structures.
Wow, this is very interesting. Looks like everybody who comes to your office goes back smiling. This somebody at his level, board chair of CDC, who came up to your office and discovered his problem was not to be solved by you, but was happy that he got to know more about the public independent conciliator. So, what is the means you are using to, apart from letting people come up to you, to let know that you are there and that they should bring your problems to you?
Thank you very much for that a very important question. I've embarked on an aggressive sensitization of the population of the Southwest region. It's true, my brother to my right said some persons can place their finger, including him, on what we are doing, but in the Southwest region, the population is beginning to be aware of the existence of the Office of the Public Independent Conciliator. First, I organized a consultation seminar with the Regional Executive Council, all the mayors, municipal and city mayors, and their first deputy. Of course, with the presence of a huge presence of the press to inform them of this structure. After that, I've had consultation and exchange meetings with civil society organization leaders in the Southwest region. I have had the same exercise with the regional structure of the National Youth Council and the regional bureau and the divisional bureau and the Southwest Youth League and the divisional and subdivisional bureaus. We've had this consultation because these two structures I've mentioned, the civil society organization and the youths, help me in creating a platform, a bridge, when they go to the field to carry out their activities. I have the broadcast of the missions of the office, what I do, who can bring the complaints on the local languages of the Southwest region, all the local languages. I have spots in English and in Pidgin on all the radio stations in all the divisions in the Southwest region. All this is to sensitize the public. I've had a meeting with market vendors. You know, the market is a very sensitive spot, and the municipal police work a lot in the market. So I've had meetings. Aside from the first meeting I had, I've had meetings bringing in the BLM, Kupe Manenguba, all the 6 divisions with key services, the civil status registry, the town planning and urbanization, circulation, hygiene and sanitation, and of course the municipal police. We've had these meetings out of Fako. I've gone to Isangele. I've sent my collaborators to Isangele, Bamuso, Mundemba, Ekondo Titi, Nguti, Bangem,
Wow,
Tombe.
so you have gone all around the region.
We have gone all
the
around
people
the
of the
region.
Northwest asking, where is the public independent conciliator for the Northwest?
No, they are not asking because they are quite informed. Just like Madam said, we embarked on a sensitization campaign and we identified our stakeholders. And the number one stakeholder we identified was the senior divisional officers because they are supervising authorities for the councils. We held seminars with them. We held seminars with the regional assembly. We held seminars with the divisional representatives and the House of Chiefs. We held seminars with the top elite of the Northwest, including the former Prime Minister and people ranking as ministers from Northwest extraction. And then we held training with what we call community-based actors who are permanently resident in all the council areas, the 34 council areas. We visited 17 councils and had what we call a town hall meetings just to tell them who we are and to tell them their expectation of the missions that we are sent to do so that we can interact. And out of this, we have 2 programs in Bamenda, Abakwa FM radio program, which comes on once a week. Then CRTV, we have the Conciliator, and these programs are relayed on community radios in Pidgin English and then in local languages.
Yeah, thank you very much. Tell me, when we listen to the 2 public independent conciliators, do we not get away with the impression that people should not be asking where they are, because we have had examples, palpable testimonies of what they are doing?
That's right, Kilian, to a certain extent. If you permit me, the clips which we shared, we must be very careful when we are addressing some of these issues, because you cannot present a picture that indicates positive. There will be a problem. People will consider that this is a pure PR relation. It would have been balanced if there is somebody, or even if the independent conciliators themselves were able to state here that they are unable to do this.
Yes, we have a question that we're going to ask them. What are the obstacles that they face? You are moving to
obstacles are when you have addressed it. But these are things you must look at them to be fair, to be seen to be objective, to make sure when you were preparing this. I'm sorry I'm saying this here, but to get people who always think this is good, whatever going there is the best, it will have a boomerang. That's 1. 2, I'm very happy with what the independent conciliator of the Northwest has said about holding seminars with the ASDO. But that's as far as they can go. What impact is that?
You've talked about civil society, people in the market squares.
Seminars I've just picked that out.
Are you not also taking one side? Because
I'm not taking
you just accuse them of
I'm not accusing
of those people making pay out for them.
Not at all.
And then now they have talked about they have programs in radio stations, in Pidgin, in other languages.
In our area, sensitization. You are telling people what you can do or what your role is. You are informing them of what you can do. But let you, what you have done for them, speak for you. It's normal. You can take, those who can read and write. I have the degree myself. I know your functions. I don't need to be called in a seminar to know what your functions are. I'll be interested. You said clearly, very pertinently, defender of the downtrodden.
Yeah.
When you meet with the ministers, as people are ranking as such in the Northwest, are they downtrodden? When you meet with SDOs, are they downtrodden? When you meet with all the people,
I have the impression that what you are approaching them of is exactly what you are doing. Because they went beyond the administrators to the local people.
I'm just trying to say that.
Yes.
That it's what they are doing is good. It's honest. For a beginning, you need people, for example, to know what you are doing. It is. I have no question about that. It's very good. You sensitize. It's good. But I say it's better to let what you do actually
be
speak for yourself.
Okay. Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
We have results.
You have results.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. As far as the Northwest is concerned, because the sensitization has gone to all nooks and corners of the Northwest, from inception up till now, we have 87 complaints, of which we have solved 67.
Okay.
And the other ones which are pending, I can tell you the obstacles which probably you know what to hear. The obstacle is that some of the mayors are very recalcitrant. Some people don't even believe that we are as independent as the text tells us to be. And we are struggling to make ourselves understood by the population, and I can tell you that the greater part of the population has understood us, and they're bringing their problems to us and we are solving.
Yes, the official from the Ministry of Decentralization, you've watched this. Will you say, yes, this is working, decentralization that we are after? Or you join and say, well, it is working, it still has some problems, as Tewi is highlighting?
Decentralization is working. It is a process. I tell you, Kilian, remember immediately the code was promulgated by the President of the Republic, we had this legislative or statutory obligation to train even the mayors and the regional executives on what is in the code. Now, what about the population that does not even know that there is a new dispensation, a new office put in place in their favor? We have a situation where our two regions, we all grew up within those two regions, and we know the propensity of our people to take matters to court. Land matters,
yes,
whatever
they actually
matters. So we have to break
court, yes.
We have to break that. We have to break that tendency of always taking everything to court without trying to see how we can solve things pacifically. And this is where they come in. These are people who have just come in. The people have to first of all know that these people can help me. And before I give you the mic, I have to say these are people with they have powers.
Yes.
Somewhere in the decree we read, or this and this.
Yes.
So that's better. Yes. Or should I go again?
Go. No, it's okay since we have just 7 minutes to go, and we still have some issues to address. Okay. I'm going to ask Mrs. Dorothy, what are some of the constraints that you have in executing your duty as you would have liked to?
Before I give that answer, like my colleague said, in the Southwest we've had 54 complaints.
Okay.
We've had 54 complaints and we have resolved 42. And those that have not been resolved is because of, I've gone now to the constraints.
Yes.
The lack of frank collaboration between the office of the PIC and the Lord Mayors. Some of the Lord Mayors are just not wanting to collaborate. It's not like they don't come. They come, you see it, you agree, and when it comes to doing what they agree to do, they don't. So it is a very difficult task, and I quite often remind them that whether they are Lord Mayors who are elected, like they say, or we are just appointed, we are there for the interests of the population. So that is the main problem. And added to the fact that Lord Mayors still have the offices, and they are moving a lot to seek funding. I don't know why. They are always traveling to fund twinning between the councils for the development of the municipalities.
Yes.
You can't blame them. So sometimes some of the correspondence we write meet them absent. And so it makes it difficult for us to respect the 60 days deadline
to resolve any problem. Now, there is a problem Mrs. Mutazi Dorothy is raising. You are powerfully limited that recalcitrant mayors, you cannot use other measures to bring them to order.
Don't forget that we were just created 2 years ago.
Yes.
We took a transitional period to sensitize people, to make people understand our rules, and we gave ourselves some time. The reprimand phase will come when we have 2 big articles in the text which give us power to order the recalcitrant mayors to come and respond, and we have another condition which means we can activate government services to take care of what we cannot take care of. But this time,
when we're talking about government services, we're talking about the security forces.
Yes, security forces.
We're talking also about the courts.
The courts.
Okay.
We're talking about everything. Okay. So where we have a problem, we can address ourselves to that. And coming to the community, in fact, in the Northwest, we have planted community-based actors in every council area who is introduced to the mayor as his own watchdog, and he reports to us considering the situation in which we are living.
Thank you. We are going to be wrapping up in 3 minutes, and we're beginning with the take home from you.
Well, the take home is that the public independent conciliators are doing their own with the realities of our country and of their regions. What I can say is that the office is also the person, just like the person is the office. And as they are the precursors, those settings, they know that the future of these public independent conciliators depend on them. If they play and they play to an extent where the results are not there, it will be recorded that they are the ones.
And at last, yes,
I want to tell them that at times they have texts that guide them. Those texts have the spirit and the letter.
Yes.
I think that they should use both.
Oh, good.
I know that. I quickly give an example here. We have institutions that people have summarily concluded as institutions put in place to fail. And I say, no, it's the people who are ahead of those institutions who
should. Okay, thank you.
I wish I could go further to use a concrete example.
Thank you.
One of our institutions, just let me use this. Maybe it will be helpful to the public independent conciliators.
Yes, rapidly.
The National Elections Governing Body was put in place, and you and me and everybody is aware that at some point there was some misunderstanding within the structure. But since the person who had I'm not saying because he was a jurist, but he understood, and he stood his ground, and the texts were respected because people interpret things the way they want.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
They should also.
You have taken time. They may not have time to conclude.
Coercive.
Yes.
We'll be talking like this.
He has said the people in the office matter because after your service, you will have an account to give, and the text that appoints the public independent conciliator says they have a mandate of 6 years non-renewable. So you should be working knowing that you are going to give account in the next 4 years. Yes, your last word, sir.
Yeah, they are going to give an account in the next 4 years.
Yes.
Because they have a mandate for 6 years non-renewable. And I want to reiterate the importance of their function. Yes. They have a certain number of wide powers. Mr. Tamfu was just raising one. They have the power to order.
Yes.
To order the regional and local authority. And if that injunction, the law didn't make a mistake to use those words, is not made, they also have a right to publish what they have been called to do.
Thank you.
Let me end by saying that the office of the public independent conciliator in the 2 regions of the special status is being clamored for. by the other 8.
Thank you very much.
I have moved around the country.
We cannot invite them and then they go without their last words.
Why
thank you.
Those offices only
you know what Southwest.
We have complaints.
Thank you. Yes, your last word, sir.
Now we know that we have a special status.
My last word is that the Office of the Public Independent Conciliator is very friendly. We will invite all the population to come and get the much needed assistance and peace that we are clamoring for our regions.
Thank you very much. Yes.
I want to call on the population to come in their numbers, except they don't have any worries, and to tell the elected officials that, like some of them think, we are not a supervisory authority because we know the senior divisional officers are, but it's important that we should work hand in glove so that the users can be happy and the environment that we are looking for, peace, should return.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That is our hope. That is our wish. That's what we are working for. Ladies and gentlemen, you watch Mr. Tamfo Simon 5, Mrs. Mutaze Telelen Dorothy Atabong, who are the public independent conciliators for the Northwest and Southwest. The Cho in Ernest Ngu, Director of Human Resources, Ministry of Decentralization and Local Development, William Beef, who's an editorialist in CRTV. That's what we put together for you. Go to the public independent conciliators in the Northwest and Southwest. If you have problems, don't sit back and complain. It is a special consideration, special status given to the two regions. If you did not watch this program from the beginning, there will be a rebroadcast on Monday at 2:30. Thank you very much for watching.